Today we're going to talk about disaster recovery in the cloud, I suppose. We are getting more devices now. There's lots more devices to deal with, multiple platforms. You've got cloud-based applications, you've got mobile apps, you've got data being moved around potentially on devices. How do you lock that down? How do you secure all of that? What happens in the event that you lose one of those devices? All of these DRE type things, it's more than just having, data center DR type stuff. But in a way, if you take the true definition of cloud and you actually use cloud-based applications, then you're actually putting a level of resilience in there from a data perspective, because the data shouldn't actually be physically on the device. You're just viewing the data. But that, we are somewhere away from that being every single piece of data that we access is just being viewed. That definitely isn't where we are today, and there's a few years to go before we get there. So there's lots of different types of disaster recovery. You've still got your traditional backup and restore, and if you do this straw poll, that first one, it'd still be a very, very high percentage of businesses still back up, tape, bag, and walk out the door. It's a very, very high percentage still, especially in the small to medium space, less so in the enterprise space. And then you've obviously got your dual center replication, synchronous and asynchronous. So that's either instantaneous is synchronous, and async it slightly lags behind. And then you've got newer stuff like your cloud-based backup services. And then you've got your disaster recovery type cloud stuff, and we'll talk a bit more about that. And what's interesting now, in the last probably 18 months now, there's the ability to be storage agnostic. So rather than always having, if you've got a HP SAN here, you've got to have a HP SAN up there, and actually the same model. And you can now start doing replication from a storage level that doesn't require the same physical pieces of tin in both locations. And that's relatively new, but that's starting to propagate quite heavily now. Physical and virtual server-based replication. So you can do from a physical or a virtual machine, you can replicate between sites, and you can do that at a delta change level. And then you've obviously got the snapshot stuff that we said, and again you can do that on a virtual machine basis, or you can do it on a SAN basis. And then as I've put there, you've got the cross-cloud data center clusters and the hybrid full cloud, so you can have bits on-premise, bits in the cloud, everything in the cloud, and you can pretty much have any combination of that. One thing the cloud gives you beyond an on-premise type solution is the fact it's the agility it gives you. You can have any combination. You can start with one, move to another, and it gives you that flexibility for your business to change as its needs change and its budget requirements and features and so forth change. So what does the future require? It's about the application of the data. So for me, application level replication is going to become more prevalent, and that'll happen as products become easier to replicate. And that might not be done even by businesses themselves, it might be by the service provider, especially from a SaaS, software as a service perspective. Ability to move data sets between clouds. But when you speak to cloud vendors, you'll see that a lot of them will talk about, oh, you can move data between vendors and all of this, but there isn't a standard yet. That doesn't exist. So if you can move between cloud vendors if they're using the same technology at the moment, but what you can't do is move between different cloud vendors easily. You can, but it still requires work, effort, and focus. And then obviously data set replication, and what I mean by that is being completely platform independent. So it's not just about moving the data between a cloud provider, but it's actually subsets of that data. You might have a big database, and you might want to take some of the data out of that, stick it into a data mining service, for example. So the ability to have the data being agnostic and being able to be moved around and leveraged against different services that you might want to purchase. And then data being hosted in data safe zones where the tentacles are a lot harder to be able to touch the data that sits here. It's impossible to be 100% safe, because as soon as you move data, the tentacles are likely to catch that data if they move off the jurisdiction. DR, in my mind, is beyond just the technical side of things. Businesses do need to start looking at where their data is, who has access to that data, and who could potentially take a copy of that data. Because from a disaster recovery perspective, or a DR or continuity or whatever you want to call it perspective, if that data gets corrupted, gets changed, gets manipulated, gets anything, for me, that sits in the same field of, you know, keeping your data safe. I'm not going to talk about technology. I'm going to broaden the conversation with the client base about, you know, what are they going to do about the whole life cycle and protection of the data as a holistic thing, and not just, oh, I've got 2 copies of it and I've got a copy on a tape. It's way beyond that. So you've got to have things like, you know, how, you know, if we are moving into the cloud, the world's moving into the cloud, whether people want to do it or not, whether it's going to take 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the timeline is, we can all argue that. But eventually, all our services are going to be delivered, and there'll be economic benefits to doing it as well, so that the businesses themselves will want to do it, even if the technology people within the businesses are reluctant to do it. So that then brings you into the next area of your provider's viability. You know, is that provider still good enough? What's their capabilities if something happens to them? And actually having the ability to get your data even if something happens to that provider. So, from a data perspective, we have 3 sort of offerings. So we have our Cloud Box. It's a Dropbox-like service, so it's synchronous, you can put some stuff up there, a little bit of version control and sharing, so it's obviously backed up and all of those good things. And then we have our Cloud Copy, which we've done in conjunction with Data Barracks. That's our backup service. It's across dual sites. It can be agentless, but it can also be application aware. And we've also done a escrow-like function or service with Data Barracks. It's all encrypted as you see. You get the key, and I don't think we've put it on here, but all our services are encrypted, 128-bit encrypted. So everything in our cloud is encrypted, irrelevant, and then our backups are encrypted again. So no matter what you do with our environment, it's all encrypted. And then we have our cloud safe thing, and basically this is using our infrastructure as service offering to deliver DR in the traditional fashion that I've been referring to into the cloud, and that can be done in a hybrid or in a 100% cloud environment. So if your production's in the cloud, you can take this service and we'll put another copy in Guernsey or vice versa, and as we roll out into other jurisdictions, we'll be able to do that into multiple different jurisdictions depending on the rules, regulations and requirements of clients. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.